Once upon a time, in a quiet village by the curve of an ancient river, there lived a potter whose art was known across the lands. His workshop was small, its walls the color of baked earth, and his hands were always stained with clay, lines of creation etched into his palms. Every morning, as the first rays of sunlight slipped through the window, he would begin the slow rhythm of shaping life from dust. He worked not for fame or wealth, but for the silent joy that came when lifeless soil found purpose under his touch. People said his pots held more than water. They held patience, gentleness, and the spirit of their maker. One day he came across a lump of clay unlike any other. It was coarse and dry, stubborn and resistant. Every attempt to shape it ended in failure, cracks, collapses, rejection. Most potters would have discarded it, but he didn't. He saw something hidden, a quiet spark waiting to be released, and so he placed it upon his wheel once more, whispering, "You may resist now, but one day you'll know why I never gave up on you." As the wheel turned beneath the potter's steady hands, the clay groaned and bent. The pressure was constant, unrelenting, fingers pressing, folding, pulling, drowning in water, only to be dried again. And then, in the silence of the workshop, something extraordinary happened. The clay spoke. "Why do you hurt me so?" it asked, trembling under his touch. "You press, you strike, you drown me in cold water, you spin me until I'm dizzy. I was whole. Why do you insist on changing me?" The potter paused. He did not laugh, nor did he silence it. He looked at the trembling shape before him and said gently, "My dear clay, I do not harm you. I shape you because I see what you can become. You feel my hands as pain, but they are the only thing keeping you from falling apart. You see destruction, I see form. You see chaos, I see beauty waiting for patience." The clay did not answer, but deep inside, something began to stir, not understanding, but the faint awareness that perhaps there was meaning hidden in the motion. Weeks later, after countless hours of shaping, the potter placed the newly formed vessel into the kiln. The clay, now fragile yet complete, had no idea what awaited it. When the fire roared to life, it screamed. The heat was unbearable, the pressure suffocating. It felt as though everything it was had been betrayed. "Why?" it cried silently. "After all this shaping, must I burn? You said you cared for me. Why would you destroy me now?" The flames danced higher, wrapping the pot in blinding light. Outside, the potter watched quietly, eyes glimmering with reflection. He could not explain to the clay that without the fire, it would never survive the storms or the cold. Only through the burning would it find its strength. When the kiln cooled, the vessel emerged transformed, strong, shining, unyielding. Its surface bore the memory of the flames, 1,000 tiny marks invisible to most, but part of its beauty. And though it could no longer speak, it finally understood. Time passed as softly as the wind that shapes dunes. The pot sat on a high shelf, half forgotten, gathering dust. People came and went, warbayas, merchants, travelers, priests, each admiring the potter's work, yet none noticing the quiet vessel resting in the corner. It waited, patient and still. One day a traveler entered the workshop. He was weary and sunburned, his clothes torn by long miles. He picked up the pot, turned it in his hands, and smiled. "Strong," he said. "I'll take this one." And so the pot began a new journey. It crossed deserts and rivers, mountains and cities. It carried water for the thirsty, held flowers for the grieving, and even once caught the tears of a child. It saw both beauty and sorrow, and for the first time, it realized its purpose was not to be admired but to serve. The very strength it had cursed the fire for was now what allowed it to give. Years later, cracked and worn, it no longer feared its imperfections. Each scratch told a story, each crack a memory. It was no longer clay. It was alive. When the traveler's journey ended, he returned to the village. He left the old pot on the doorstep of the same small workshop, not knowing it was the same potter's home. The potter, now old and gray, found it one morning. He lifted the pot in trembling hands, and for a long time he simply looked at it. Its once glossy surface was dulled, its rim chipped, but its form was still strong, the essence intact. He smiled and whispered, "You've traveled far, haven't you? You've carried water across the sands. You've held life itself. You've done what you were shaped for." He placed it upon his table, among the finest works of his life. Visitors would later ask why he kept that old cracked pot in the center of his display. He would only say, "Because it lived." And that was enough. The story of the potter and the clay is not about craft, it's about becoming. It reminds us that creation is never gentle. We are shaped by pressure, carved by time, and tested by fire. Every human life turns upon its own wheel, the endless motion of joy and loss, building and breaking. We call it chaos, yet perhaps it is art in motion. The universe, like the potter, sees not our struggle, but our unfolding. In today's world, we are taught to seek control, perfection, and speed. We chase flawless images, polish our surfaces, and fear the cracks that make us human. But the potter's wisdom endures. Strength comes from surrender and beauty from imperfection. The fire you curse today may be the same fire that forges your resilience tomorrow. The wheel that exhausts you may be turning you toward grace. Even your fractures, the moments you think have broken you, are where compassion leaks through. We live in a time of noise and competition, where being enough feels like a constant battle. But when we slow down, when we remember that we too are clay, something shifts. We begin to trust the process, to let life shape us instead of resisting it. Maybe that's all wisdom really is, not understanding the whole design, but trusting the hands that shape us. So when the fire burns, when the pressure mounts, when you don't understand why life presses so hard, remember the pot. Remember the clay that once cried out, "Why must you hurt me?" and later whispered, "Thank you for the shaping," because in the end, every one of us is both the potter and the clay, creating, breaking, healing, and learning that to be shaped is to live.